Hey everybody, welcome to Rock Around the Ring. I am Kid Cadet, joined always by the fantabulous and the sweet D, Danica Jenelle. How you doing, girl?
Delightful as always.
Fantabulous.
Oh,
All right, well we're we're gonna get this party started. It is my absolute privilege to bring to the stream at this very moment. He is the current reigning and defending NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion. It's Nick Aldis.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
What's up? I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you. We really appreciate it. So, all right, we're going to get right into it. So, the way that we kind of wanted to start is you and Billy have really been breathing a new life, into NWA. And I feel like you're the person obviously leading NWA into its next evolution. So, what was it about the promotion that made you want to call it home?
It was, I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I think it was just one of those situations where it was quite a sort of symbiotic situation where they had narrowed in on a vision, they being Billy and at the time David Lagana, where Billy had decided to buy the rights to the NWA, and it was something where he had sort of looked at the landscape of wrestling and sort of seen a lot of one thing, and that being a style of wrestling, that was very much where the primary focus of the presentation was very much on the wrestling match happening in the ring, the execution of wrestling moves in a wrestling match. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was a hell of a lot being focused on that one lane, and we felt like there were a lot of lanes. And Billy, obviously diehard Chicagoan, grew up, in Chicago, grew up with that type of wrestling, grew up with Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher and, the AWA, and then was exposed to Georgia Championship Wrestling and the NWA. And that's the wrestling that really sort of spoke to him as a kid. And I think that he had a desire to bring a modern version of it to the forefront. And I think when he started looking around and thinking, okay, well, who can I put in place to kind of bring that to reality? He had a list of names, and I was one of them. And when at the time he contacted me, I was really sort of at a crossroads of my career. I was really I was contemplating retirement. I was sort of, not retirement, but just kind of I was at this point where I felt like I had spent a lot of time mastering one particular sort of style and skill set, and then the industry had sort of decided that they didn't want that anymore and they wanted this other thing. So it was kind of like, it would be like I guess the equivalent, it would be like someone who had spent their entire life mastering like ballroom dancing, or like something classic like that. But then by the time they'd got, they'd mastered it, it was like, oh, no one does that anymore. Everyone likes to do like break dancing, or you know what I mean, or something. And then you're sort of left going, oh, well, okay, I don't know what to do anymore. And when I was looking at the industry, I was finding myself being more and more interested in boxing and MMA, and not because I'm not a particularly sort of combat sports oriented guy. I'm certainly not a violent person by any means, and it wasn't like I grew up with that, as part of my culture or anything. But just the presentation of the television was what was really grabbing me, because it was creating this sort of epic feel of a showdown, and this kind of culmination, these two stories and a prize, and this sort of prize fight. And I would see these, fantastic pieces being put together by HBO and Showtime and UFC, and I would go like, where is this in pro wrestling? We're supposed to be the ones who are the best at this stuff. We're supposed to be the ones that the best at creating this dramatic sort of build and this, this unmissable kind of showdown between these two larger than life characters, right? And we're just sort of going, oh, dream match, like one really good wrestler against another really good wrestler, and oh, it's going to be epic, and like that was it, and I was kind of like, where's the drama, where's the heart and soul? And in articulating this, to at first David when he first contacted me, and then Billy, it was like right away we understood each other, and you know, he understood, okay, we're on the same page. And so I brought a lot of sort of implementation ideas to the table of what Billy wanted. I think Billy had a very broad strokes idea of what he wanted. Like certainly Power, the studio show, was certainly something that he had in his mind from the beginning, but he knew he needed to be able to develop some value in the brand and develop you know, some stars to be able to make that interesting. And I think in my contributions in the beginning is what led to the 10 Pounds of Gold series, which is then what made everybody start going, man, you ought to take a look at these guys. Like, this is something really different. So by the time we got to Power, we had All In under our belt. We had NWA 70. We had this, you know, Aldis and Cody rivalry. We had Tim Storm. You know, we had developed a few people that really felt like significant players in the industry. So then when we launched Power, people were like, okay, I'm ready to see this.
Awesome. Wow. Well said.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned just now 10 Pounds of Gold, and you tweeted, I think it was yesterday, about the return of 10 Pounds of Gold. So what would you say you're most looking forward to in terms of revitalizing the series?
Oh, I think people are going to be really, I hope that people really see this as a rejuvenation of Mike Bennett. Like, I think that, look, there's a lot of wrestling companies now, and there's a lot of people under contract, and it's difficult to, you know, it's difficult to find free agents and find people who you can build around. You know, that's why there's more cross promotion, you know, being looked at, and it's why some of the, and it's, you know, we're not the only people in that boat, you know. And in fact, I think it's one of the reasons why we're kind of valuable in the industry at this point, because a lot of promotions realize that we're open to do business with other promotions. So now they realize that there's always that in the back pocket, you know. But if anyone, and I've seen it, look, we all, you know, look, it's wrestling, right? We're never gonna, there's always going to be trolls. There's, you know, it's, I mean, you haven't been, you know, you don't last as long as I have in the industry without seeing a few unkind things said about you. And I've seen a few of the things, you know, old Mike Bennett, like, oh, yawn, what the hell, why, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I want to remind those people that these are probably the same people that were saying, like, oh, who gives a shit about Cody Rhodes with his list? Who gives a shit about Tim Storm? You know, he's a school teacher, right? Oh, who gives a shit about Magnus? You know, this guy from TNA, like, you know, whatever, right? And now here we are. So, and I'm certainly not suggesting that the 10 Pounds of Gold series was responsible for Cody's success, but I'm just using that as an example. But if we've had people take a leap of faith with us before, and we've never let them down. And I'm convinced that by the time they see this new episode of the 10 Pounds of Gold series, and look, we know that people have been clamoring for the return of 10 Pounds. You know, there's a lot of people that would never have watched NWA Power were it not for the 10 Pounds of Gold series. It's really interesting when I talk to fans, finding out what part of our timeline they joined, you know, like what, because some people it's Power, some people it's All In, some people it's the 10 Pounds of Gold series, you know, but it's more people than you might think go, oh, it's 10 Pounds of Gold series, man. I love that show so much, you know, Tim Storm, and oh my God, you know, because it was real. And I think when you see this and you see how open and honest Mike has been about his struggles with addiction, and how candid he's been about how disappointed he was about things went for him in the last few years, very relatable to where I was around the time of, you know, the whole 10 Pounds of Gold series starting, because I had been on top of the world in TNA and then just like disappeared off the face of the earth, and everyone was like, oh, who gives a shit about him? So I think that's my real hope for this, is that by the time they get to the end of this episode of 10 Pounds of Gold, they go, okay, like, I'm in. I'm going to give these guys a shot.
Awesome. Well, since we are speaking about Mike Bennett, you do have that match, which I believe is a week from tomorrow. So what has it been preparing for a match during these interesting and different times that we're living in right now?
Yeah, it's my biggest concern is conditioning. You know, having the gas in the tank to be able to deliver. Because look, we're asking for people's money. You know, not a huge amount, $7.99 on FITE, but
that's very fair.
But we're asking for your money, and you know, it's my responsibility to deliver, you know, a world championship caliber match, and it's not that easy when you've been inactive, because everyone says it, and it's true. It's really hard to replicate the demands of wrestling at a high level. You know, particularly world title level matches. It's really hard to replicate it in the gym. You know, I do the best. I actually just got done with a workout about half an hour ago, and it's a lot of. I've been doing a lot of circuits, a lot of stuff that tries to sort of mimic the kind of demands on your system, you know, that a wrestling match does. So it's like running and then immediately lifting and then jumping and then dropping, and then, you know, it's a lot of stuff that basically requires you to move your whole body around. So look, I'm 250 at the moment, which is kind of heavy for me. But you know, and to move around 250 for 20 minutes is, you know, it's not an easy task. I've been going down to Clarksville, which is about an hour away from me in Franklin, Tennessee, and working out in the ring with Tom, and he's been great. Like, you know, there's the Tried and True Academy, so I've been going down there and trying to work off some rust. So that's my biggest concern, is just making sure that we can deliver in the ring, because obviously that's my responsibility as the world champion, is for people to leave going, okay, that was worth my money.
Awesome.
Well, to sort of jump to a different section here, but you do have a new role of being what's called a special correspondent for FITE. So we're wondering what interests you.
What are you wondering? What the hell a special correspondent is?
Essentially, sure.
I don't know why they settled on that as the title, but yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I've had aspirations to get into broadcasting. I've dabbled in it here and there. You know, start going back as far as hosting the UK Strongest Man, I think in 2012. You know, did quite a bit of broadcasting for Ring of Honor. Even did play-by-play on an entire show when Ian Riccaboni's wife decided to go into labor and ruin everybody's plans. I was supposed to be, there was a show in Miami. I was supposed to be, you know, on the desk for the whole show, but I was supposed to do color. And then Ian's wife went into labor, and they said, "Do you think you could do play-by-play for the whole show?" So, well, I guess I'm the first and only choice. So yes, but no, and as you know, with FITE, Mike Weber, who's the COO of FITE, he and I have had we've known each other a long time. He worked for TNA back in the day, so he's known that I've had that aspiration. The NWA has a great relationship with FITE because, frankly, we've been a good performer for them, you know, with our pay-per-views. So I was talking to Mike about an idea I had. I was sort of basically pitching him or asking for his take on a pilot I was doing, and that sort of pivoted to, well, hey, you know, if you want to do some broadcasting, like, we could probably, you know, figure out some stuff here for you. So he knows I like boxing and MMA and just in sports in general, and FITE. I mean, they've really diversified, especially during this COVID era. I mean, because of so many shows, or so many sort of promoters who can't have fans now, are now pivoting to doing pay-per-views with FITE, to sort of make up the deficit. And so now they've, you know, what used to be basically just combat sports and wrestling is now they've got live concerts and, you know, sports, tennis, motocross. I mean, like, so yeah, I've done a couple of gigs so far. I talked to Carlos Molina, who's a very, very well-known Mexican boxer, ahead of Mexican Independence Day weekend. He's got a big pay-per-view going on down there. And I just talked to Goji Asaki ahead of NOAH N1 Victory League. So yeah, it's exciting and it's fun. It's a chance for me to spread my wings and diversify a little bit.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't want to misquote you on this, but from the article that we read, it said that FITE, has managed to pivot and expand in a year that has been very challenging for all of us. But what do you personally think has been the most difficult thing to overcome as far as holding the title or wrestling in general during this pandemic? I know you mentioned before, like the workout routine and everything as well.
Well, for us particularly, I mean, it's staying in business. It's not like we don't have a rights fee. We don't have a television deal, that pays us. We are very much one of our sort of key taglines of the NWA has always been traditional values of the modern delivery system. So we had, Power, for example. Yes, by the time you take into account the ticket sales, because they weren't, every single fan we had in the building there paid for their tickets. They weren't like a studio audience. Like they were bought, they were paid tickets, and so that made up a lot of the numbers. But ultimately, those shows were not really run to make a profit. The shows were run to basically create a platform in which to promote pay-per-views, live events, and merchandise. Which is the old school model. All the old territories didn't really get any money for their TV. In fact, a lot of them paid for their television time slot because it was advertising for them. Because then they could have their shows, run their angles, and then be, hey, we're going to be in Shreveport on this night. We're going to be in here, and we're going to be in Biloxi. We're going to be whatever. And we were kind of trying to do the same thing, but obviously on a digital level. So it was more kind of, okay, and then we have these pay-per-views coming up on FITE, or we have, a special, or we have this, we have that, or we're doing a live event somewhere. So yeah, we pivoted. We had resisted the idea of Patreon up until then, but we decided, obviously with COVID, we decided it was time to pull the trigger on that. So that's helped. And it's just a case now of trying to basically create compelling content within the limitations that we have, and take advantage of our most loyal fans, because we are blessed with a very, very loyal fan base who are happy to part with their money, but more so than just happy to part with it, they almost want to support the NWA. They want to see us survive and thrive, because look, they understand that Billy Corgan is not hurting for money, but they also understand that he's not, we're not a tax write-off for $1 billion company, right? And we're certainly not, as well funded as AEW, and we don't have a big TV rights fee that we were able, to get ourselves into. So I think that there's a little bit of that underdog spirit, but at the same time, with the underdog spirit, we still put out, I believe we put out a product, that is comparable to anything put out by any wrestling promotion in terms of professionalism and in terms of the quality. So, and I think that people understand that and they respect that. And I think that that's, we have to do everything we can to basically stay, to innovate and to stay kind of keep it fresh as far as ways we can keep generating revenue until such a time where we can start getting fans back in and start kind of getting back to a more normal sort of operating schedule as far as the conventional revenue streams.
Sure. And hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Well, I have another changing gear question, but before we do that, we have a question from Brandon. So he says, let's say you successfully retain your NWA title against McBennett, and Billy asked you if you want to defend the championship in AEW, would you? And if so, is there anyone in particular you would want to defend it against? It's a big question. It's a good one.
I'm more than open to it, as long as the business is right, and I think that the fans really dictate that as much as I do. I think that you see it, that the consistent names that come up as far as when they sort of fantasy book crossover matches. It's obviously there's Cody, but I think that one's almost a no-brainer. That one almost lives on its own in a separate sort of universe at this point, where they know that at some point or other the third one will happen. And then I think the other names that always come up are Moxley, Jericho, and Kenny. So I think that, you know, I personally, I mean, obviously, look, I mean this. This is in no way meant to be a sideways dig, you know, at Chris. But you know, I've been a fan of Jericho, you know, for most of the time. I've been a wrestling fan, you know, so it's like I've you know, grown up with Jericho. So that would be, for me, you know, would be special. It would be this. And I've been fortunate in my career to have got to wrestle many of the guys that made me want to become wrestlers, like Kurt Angle and Sting, you know, and guys like that. So it's like, you know, so it would, you know, to be able to get in there with Jericho, you know, would be interesting. And I think we could tell a great story. But also Kenny, you know, I mean, I think again, like the, you know, the contrast of styles, that's really that's my favorite type of match to have, is the sort of contrasting styles. And really, when you think about it, all three of those names I just mentioned all fit that description. So I mean, honestly, I'd be more than happy to sort of take on that challenge for any of those two, because I think they're all unique matchups and could all be fun in their own way.
For sure.
I'd
That's
be
a
very
good question,
happy to see
Brandon.
any of those. Yeah. So I guess my next question would be, so since you've been wrestling for a while, obviously, what are some advancements or changes that you've seen that have been, you know, started from when you started until now? Like, what kind of things have shifted, have you seen?
Certainly I'd say the overall level of physical ability is definitely higher. The requirements of you can take that whichever way you want to take it, meaning like it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes the wrestling business better, like, or more entertaining, but certainly from a purely athletic standpoint, I'd say wrestlers overall today are better than they were when I first got into the industry.
I feel like we asked this to another one of our guests who said a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Who it was at this point, but that yeah, it was a very similar answer.
Could have been Jericho.
May well have been.
It's very possible.
Yeah, it's like I watch matches sometimes and I go, wow, like these guys, I mean, it's unbelievable that they're able to remember all this stuff and execute it all, you know, at such a fast pace. But I don't necessarily get emotionally invested in it. I'm kind of watching it like, oof, yikes, like I'm watching a great martial arts movie or something. But I would, you know, but again, like I said, that's an advancement, for lack of a better term. I think that there's a bit more of an emphasis now on athleticism, you know, than other things. And again, that's you know, that's open to interpretation, but whether that's good or bad. The one thing I would say, and I mention this whenever, if I do seminars or if anyone ever asks me, one of the, you know, a common question I get is, you know, advice for guys coming up now. And I would take Ricky Starks as an example. I had never seen Ricky Starks. I'd never heard of him. I'd never seen him in a match. Never seen him cut a promo. I saw a vignette that he had produced himself, and by the time I'd watched this vignette, it's like 2 minutes. I'm just like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he's any good, but my gut tells me he's got to be, to go to this level of effort. I sent it to Billy and said, we need to take a look at this guy. At least give him a shot, because anyone who goes to that level of effort, you know, clearly has a mental aptitude and has an idea of who they are and an ownership of their character. And obviously that, you know, my gut was right on him. And I'm, you know, not trying to take more credit than I deserve, because, you know, I think probably deserve a little bit. You know, I helped make sure, you know, helped push hard for him to get a platform that he's now been able to use to show the world his talent.
I mean, I'd say it was a good call. But.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. But the thing that stood out to me on that, and I use him as an example, is that when I was coming up, you know, I was coming up in the MSN Messenger era, right?
Oh,
Who
oh
remembers
gosh.
that? You know,
Yeah.
and it's like that's how me and like most of the boys were communicating if we weren't texting, right? And you know, so at MySpace, like it was sort of social media was just a sort of, and I'm 33, okay, so
We're older than you, so we get it.
Yeah,
like,
let's not talk
you know,
about
I remember what MySpace, wow. I mean, I remember having my own website with Homestead and thinking I was like the coolest thing ever.
Angel
right?
Fire here.
Homestead, yeah. But like, and I was probably ahead of the curve. You know, like a lot of the generation before me were probably like, oh, what's he doing with this? What a nerd. You know, like, but what I always say now is we progressed from, if you wanted to get booked, you would send an 8x10 in the post, right, in the mail, you know, maybe a resume, you know, like saying where you've worked or who you were trained by, whatever. Then it went to email. Then you might attach an 8x10. Then you might have a link to a YouTube match. Then you might have progressed to maybe if you knew somebody or you had half decent skills, you might have even chopped together a crappy like highlight reel for yourself, you know, with Linkin Park or something playing in the background, right?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you know, and it's like now you've got to produce like movie quality vignettes for yourself before all the stuff that, you know, in my mind when I was coming up, I was thinking, God, if I could just get on TV with TNA or WWE or whoever, then they could produce these cool vignettes. Like, you know, TNA did some pretty decent ones for me. I remember running the steps at the Parthenon in Nashville and stuff because I was going to be the gladiator, you know, and whatever. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. You know, never struck me at that point that I could have done this myself to a degree. But obviously, even then, you know, they talk about 2008, 2009. You know, the stuff now, like I remember asking for certain stuff in TNA, like for my, you know, for a package or for an entrance or something, and then being told, you know how much that costs, you know how much time that's going to take to make something like that, blah, 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 and this and that. Now I can do it myself on my computer, you know, like with a program that I paid $100 for, right? So there's literally no excuse now for talent, you know, who want to get noticed. It requires you to have the creativity and aptitude and get off your ass and learn how to do that stuff, because that's as necessary a requirement as any other part of the industry now, is that you have to be a producer. If you're cutting your own promos, right? Because obviously if you go to WWE, they're going to script them for you, but everywhere else you might get bullet points, you know, but some of them, they may just say, cut a promo. So if you came up with the words and you decided how to deliver them and you decided, like, you know, how you were going to present yourself, you're a producer. And more talent need to understand that you're already a producer. You produced the act and the character that you're putting out, you know, every time you do an independent show. Now those skills have to progress to, now you need to learn how to direct and edit, you know, and produce on that level. And it's not that hard. And that's the requirement now for guys who want to get noticed, is that it's not enough to just be like, go on social media and post it, you know, oh, I'm going to be wrestling on this show. Or it's like, no, man, like you've got to do something that looks professional and makes people go, okay, I can see this guy in a professional environment, because you can now create it yourself. There's no excuse.
That's
Is everybody taking notes here? You know, learn After Effects. You know?
Yeah. Well, I was also going to mention, since you did bring up Ricky, that not only is he incredibly talented, but he is incredibly kind. And I think that's another thing that gets you really far in this industry, is when you do have the reputation of being very sweet and kind, not only to the people that you work with, but people that look up to you and admire you. And Ricky is somebody that, you know, I did have the opportunity to see him a couple times down in South Florida, and he was always so nice to everybody that he met. Yeah,
great kid, and just, you know, passionate. You got passion for the industry, and you know, and really just does not want, he wants to succeed by being good, not by sort of stepping over someone else, and and just and there, that's never gonna go away. There's always going to be that element of the industry. But yes, you made up, it's an interesting point that you brought up, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've always had a glowing reputation, right? I think that I've been, I personally think that I've been perhaps a victim of, unfortunate misinterpretation, at times. And I think that, there are times where certain people could twist a narrative, about me to sort of fit, and that's part of the industry too, is ultimately the easier, if you see somebody as a threat, if you're higher up in the food chain, the easiest thing to do is to just spread a few rumors about someone, or kind of put a narrative out about them, and it's really hard to overcome that. And I can speak from personal experience about that. But I also have the self-awareness to know that a lot of the time, the first time I meet someone, it's not always necessarily, they don't always necessarily get the best impression, because I'm an introvert. Like I'm not the character that you see on Power. It's a lot. I'm not deliberately trying to be, obnoxious or arrogant or sort of aloof. That's a word that gets thrown around me a lot. He's aloof.
Okay.
But the point I want to make on this is that, and I thought I mentioned this recently following the Sonya Deville incident with the crazy fan, right?
Yeah, that's.
I've been with Mickey for 10 years, right? And I've been all over the world with her, and I've seen guys have been totally inappropriate, way too come way too close, way too say too much, way too forward, and most of the time just downright annoying and irritating, and a lot of the time I have to be bad cop, right? And I know that the problem is that in the social media era, is that it's the misinformation era, right? So now I know that the narrative turns into, oh, Mickey's so great and she's so sweet and so nice. Nick's a fucking asshole. He's such a dick. No, I'm bad cop because I see the guys who are lurking in the corner with the weird look in their eye, and they are not saying anything, and they're just staring for like 10, 20 minutes. And I'm worried that guy, the guy that's going to end up on our back porch trying to cut through our screen.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm the one who has to go, hey, dude, you need to move along, right? I'm going to eat that. I don't care. But my point is that, like, I think that while you're right about it's definitely more important than it used to be, because of social media, and because the ease of information sharing is there. It is more important to be affable, right, and professional to everyone. But I would also say that unfortunately that can sometimes get manipulated and co-opted by fans who have their own agendas based on, if so, for example, if a fan is like just not reading the room and just being being rude and obnoxious and kind of talking to us while we're eating or something, and taking on my time, and I have to be the one who goes, hey, like we're eating right now, I need you to so they're gonna go, they can go away and go like, they can just completely misrepresent that whole situation and go,
of course,
I'm gonna expose Nick Aldis because I'm, I politely asked for a picture and he told me to go F myself, and it's like, and that's, and because people want to believe the bad news.
Yeah.
It can get so, you're right, but it's also, it's also, there are times where it can be very suffocating as a talent. I can just say with that culture that exists with some of the fans now, because they kind of like hold you hostage because they kind of know that they have this power over you. Like, hey, you better play ball, otherwise I'm gonna just like do a big expose on you and try to ruin your reputation. And it happens, and it's a horrible part of the culture, But overall, I think you're right. Like it's overall, I think that, and look, I'm a big believer in energy. Like and most of the time, if I felt the need to be a certain way with someone, I felt like it was earned and deserved. I'm certainly not someone who goes out of their way to, you know, be. But I've also, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't had a bad day now and then. But
you're allowed. You're human.
Right. And
Yeah.
but yeah, you're not as much as you used to be though.
Right. Yeah. Understandable. So, what do you think, Danica? Should we go to the game?
I think probably we should.
Okay. So, Nick, this is a simple game of would you rather. So, we're going to give you two options, and all you have to do is choose between which of the two you would rather do. So, Danica is going to get the game started.
All right.
So, here's the first one.
Would you rather have your entrance music be a Kids Bop song or be a show tune?
Oh, show tune, 100%. Come on.
Any in particular?
Well, Phantom of the Opera would certainly be better than anything on Kids Bop. Like, I can make Phantom of the Opera work. I mean, Wicked might be my favorite musical I've ever seen.
Wow.
Okay.
But I don't know if coming out to Defying Gravity would be, you know, the most appropriate thing. But yeah,
True. Maybe popular. You know.
Yeah. But no, yeah, definitely a show tune.
Okay. All right. Here's the next one. Would you rather wrestle a 60-minute Broadway against Ric Flair or lead a team against Dusty Rhodes in War Games?
60 minutes with Flair. You know, that would be an all-time badge of honor in the industry. And you know, as much as don't get me wrong, like I'm all for the blood and guts every now and then with a War Games match, but you know, you have the 60-minute Broadway with Flair gives you the potential. You have the potential to you know, have the match that people remember forever.
Ooh, yeah, good choice. All right, that's our next one. Would you rather go skydiving or cave diving?
What's cave diving?
It's
From
like
what I can figure out, it's just scuba diving
in a cave.
Very possibly getting stuck is my assumption.
So in the sky or in the ocean?
I'm probably skydiving. I'm not afraid of heights at all. I've been bungee jumping and that was nuts.
No,
but
thank you.
but there's something about skydiving where it's, you know, it as much as you think I think, oh yeah, I did, but then just even then, just being presented with those two options, that was almost like, oh, I have to do one or the other, and it was nerve-wracking. But yeah, skydiving, I think.
Okay, all right. I feel like bungee jumping.
If you're gonna do something that's like potentially, you know, gonna lead to your death, it may as well be spectacular.
What a way to go! Defying gravity. All right.
Rey Mysterio invited us.
Or not defying gravity is the case.
Yeah, true.
Oh God.
What were you saying, Danica?
That Rey Mysterio invited us to go with him. So maybe at some point we'll have to go.
Really?
Yeah, and he said he's afraid of heights. So the fact that he's done it, we'll see. Who knows?
Lots of respect.
Yeah. All right, here's the next one. Would you rather wrestle barefoot or have to wrestle in boots 2 sizes too big?
Oh God. That's brutal.
Yeah, sorry about it.
I think probably the boots 2 sizes too big, because I just come here. Oh, I've got the dog is.
Hi, Bob. Hi, doggy.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that face.
I don't think I could wrestle barefoot. It would be, I could, but I feel like I would slip and it would just be, it would be hard. Yeah. I don't know how guys do it. I don't know how the Von Erichs did it. I don't know how Riddle does it. But the 2 sizes too big. I could probably just sort of get by on like brawling and, you know, a bit of smoke and mirrors and not have to do too much.
All right.
I love the clown shoes.
Yeah. All right, our next one is, would you rather have to drive everywhere or be able to fly everywhere, but you always have to have a layover in Chicago? And I would say Chicago's O'Hare, not Midway.
O'Hare.
O'Hare. It's so fun. Like, that is drive.
Drive? Okay.
Let me tell you, I had to connect. I've had to connect in O'Hare a couple of times, like flying to the UK, and it makes no sense. It's just like, who did this? Like every time I go, I just go, who did this to us? Like what? Who came up with this? Like, you get off the plane and it's like, I've got to go out and I've got to go through security again. Not only do I have to go through security again, but I've got to go to like a terminal that's so far away that I've got to go take a bus. It takes me 20 minutes to walk to where the bus is. And then the bus is like no one, and there's no one really knows. No one really, there's no definitive, like the signs will say like it's this way, and then they just kind of stop and they kind of go, yeah, like it's a fun game. Like see if you can make it. It's like
it's amazing.
I just remember every time I would just go, every time I remember I've connected to O'Hare on an international, I've always been thinking, did I do something wrong? Like, did I mess up? And like, I could have, like, I'm waiting for someone to go, what'd you do this for? You could have just gone on like this something or other and it would have just taken you straight to get. Nope. Like, you basically have to go to a whole other city.
Yeah.
And good luck finding the public transit to try to get to the airport when you're there.
Yeah, it's like you go outside and it's just like, all right, you're on your own. There are some buses, but you don't know where to go. You just gotta hope you get on the right one.
Oh man. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. Would you rather be in a tag team with Stephen Fry or a tag team with Hugh Laurie?
Well, first of all, let me just say what a huge fan I am of both of these guys. They're genuine national treasures, so they would definitely fit well with me. But I gotta say, I got a feeling that Stephen Fry could handle himself. He's
big dude.
Rugged, big rugby
he's like
player.
6'5", right?
I mean, I think they both went to Eton or and Oxford and everything. I mean, but I'm pretty sure that Stephen Fry played rugby, so I have to go with Stephen on this one.
I see that.
All right.
All right, our next one. Oh God, yeah, you're welcome. Would you rather have to eat black pudding once a day or have to eat Marmite once a day?
I'm happy with. First of all, I'm happy with both of those.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, every day it would probably be Marmite because it's it'd be easier. Like black pudding would probably grate on me after a while, but I like black pudding.
It's so heavy.
Yeah.
Well, you only have a small amount. I mean, you only have like a little bit with your breakfast.
I feel like if I had black pudding once a day, it would be sticking with me for the next 3 days. It'd be like, I can't anymore.
Good for it's iron. It's good for your blood.
Ooh, yum. All right. Well, our final one. Would you rather compete on Strictly Come Dancing or compete on the Great British Bake Off?
Bake Off, 100%. Well, let me clarify. I would have much rather been on original Bake Off with Mel and Sue and Mary Berry. I like Noel Fielding. I'm okay with Sandy Toksvig, but
I love Noel Fielding.
Let's face it. Paul Hollywood was the weakest link in this whole thing. He managed to sort of keep. He took the money. He sold out. He took the money to go to Channel 4. It's just, to me, Mel and Sue are just phenomenal. I would have definitely, with Mel and Sue is what I would have wanted to do it. Here's an interesting story. I actually was shortlisted for Strictly.
Really?
When I was doing Gladiators. Yeah. It didn't get much further than just a kind of would you be open to it conversation, but the seamstress who worked on Gladiators was also a seamstress on Strictly, and she loved me. Like we got on great, and so she would go and tell them, "Oh, you've got to see this guy. He's like he'd be so great for this because he's like this villain and he's blah blah blah." And my manager called me at the time and was like, "Just taking your temperature. Strictly, yes, no." I was like, "Yeah," but never got any further. So.
Oh man. Well, you never know.
Fun, yeah.
I obviously thought the Gladiators was too low brow for Strictly.
Oh. All right. Well, since we've kind of come to the 45-minute mark, is there any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with here today?
No, but on behalf of me and everyone at the NWA, and Maureen's been busting her ass, and I have, and Billy's been steadfast and keeping everything going, and we appreciate everybody who's stuck with us and still supporting us on Patreon and watching the videos and engaging with us on social media. We've still got we're still doing really good numbers with merchandise and stuff. I'm looking forward to 10 Pounds of Gold returning and Primetime Live debuting next week on FITE. And in the meantime, just stick with us. Like we're trying to take this thing one step at a time, and I think that in the end we'll be rewarded. But we appreciate everyone, and if you're new to this and you haven't checked us out yet, and you're wondering what all the hullabaloo is about, youtube.com/NWA. All of our stuff is there. The entire 10 Pounds of Gold series, all 21 episodes of Power, and on socials, it's very simple, at NWA across them all. I'm at Real Nick Aldis on Twitter, or at Nick Aldis on Instagram. Just follow us, man. You never know where we're going to show up, but trust me, if you want a real alternative, the NWA is your place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. It's been an absolute
pleasure.
privilege. We're going to go get some Marmite and some blood pudding real quick, but hopefully we'll see you again real soon. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Bye everybody.